Hey guys, Scott here with some quick advice on choosing your first class for your first playthrough in Elden Ring. I know a lot of my DVD viewers are kind of new to the whole series and they're kind of getting sucked into the hype as a lot of people are, so I thought I would just give a very quick guide on what to choose for your first class. I would say first off, the most important thing you can do is just choose what you think looks cool. I think that's probably the most important part, but if you want to take it a step further and have your stats make your playthrough able to use the most weapons possible in a single playthrough, which I think is probably the best choice. There is a best build to use for basically all the Souls games, and it's called a quality build. A quality build basically just means you're scaling equal point strength and dexterity, and this will allow you to use the majority of the weapons that you find for the first time. Now, in the Souls games, there are always going to be outlier weapons. There's going to be spellcasting weapons that you're probably not going to be able to use with this type of setup, but the majority of weapons in the game are always going to be strength or dexterity based, so I always say doing a quality build for your first playthrough of a Souls game is always a very good idea because you'll get the most value out of your first playthrough. You can mess with the most weapons possible in just one playthrough. So to make that, you have to pick your starting class. Typically, that's going to be the warrior, the hero, the vagabond, or the samurai. They're all going to have roughly the same combat prowess with strength and dexterity, plus or minus 1 or 2 points here and there. But those are the classes you're probably going to want to start with. Again, choose whatever you think looks cool. The starting class really doesn't matter that much other than your starting gear. And if you're trying to PvP, it's a bit more important because you do actually need to optimize your stats because you can only PvP players that are within a certain level range of you with certain exceptions. So that is the only time really min-maxing it is super important. But for everybody else that's just having a regular playthrough, it doesn't really matter that much. But just, I would say, pick one of those for hero, vagabond, God, I forget the one, samurai or warrior. I think I forgot that. And just pick one of those. And then for the actual stats you want to get, there are things called soft caps and hard caps that you basically want to hit as soon as possible. Now, the soft cap, I believe, for Vigor, which is your life total, your health pool in Elden Ring, it's very similar to Dark Souls 3, where at 27 points, that is your first soft cap. And a soft cap, if you're unfamiliar with it in the Souls games, is not literally a cap. It doesn't actually mean you stop gaining, anything past that point. It just means that's the first breakpoint at which the returns you get for investing points into that stat start mattering less. Now, there's also something called a hard cap, but that's also not really a cap. It's just the next breakpoint before it really starts giving you barely anything. So before a soft cap, you might get, as an example, 10 points of health per vigor. After the soft cap, you might get 5 points per vigor. And then after the hard cap, you might get 1. That's basically kind of what the caps are. And that's an important term to know because there are a lot of caps in this game. And knowing where to stop your stats is pretty important for not wasting points. So you want to try to get to 27 vigor. That's the first break point. Obviously, more is always better. You're going to get hit, and you're not doing a no-hit run for your first playthrough of Elden Ring. So more than that is always nice, but you should always try to hit that 27 point pretty much as soon as possible because everybody will get hit, and there's just no avoiding that. Next, you want to have enough strength and dexterity to actually wield the weapons that you want to use. Typically, most weapons are going to fall within 15, 20, 25 of whatever respective stat. Now, they're going to scale probably better with one or the other, but having both is still good. So the typical stats you want to go for are the soft caps, which I believe are also 40 in Elden Ring, much like Dark Souls 3 as well. It's very similar stat structure. 40 is the first soft cap. Typically, like 50, 60 is where you get hard caps. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'd say 40 is an excellent place to stop once you hit the maximum amount in your offensive stat. But there's an interesting interaction. When you two-hand weapons, your strength is multiplied by 1.5. So 27 strength actually is the ideal stopping point for your strength soft cap. Because when you two-hand that, it's going to be multiplied by 1.5, and now you're at the soft cap of 40. So then you're going to have essentially 40 strength and 40 dex when you're two-handing a weapon. So this is the best way to min-max your stats as much as possible so you can use as many weapons as possible. Other than that, the important stat for a first playthrough is going to be endurance. Endurance is what is going to determine what armor you can equip, how your roll is going to be, and how many times you can roll or swing. It's an extremely important stat. That typically also has a soft cap of around 40, but 20 is pretty decent to get you going. But it's one of those stats where you can always put more points into it, and it's always a good idea. So if we had a priority system, it would be you want to have 27 vigor at some point, but first you need the dexterity and strength to wield your weapon. So the most important thing is the minimum requirements for your weapon. The next point I would say would be vigor to stay alive. And then the third most important stat would be your endurance to swing your weapon, to roll, to recover, and things like that. Anything past that, then you would start wanting to go up to the 40 cap for your offensive stats. And then you can always go up to like 40, 50 vigor. I think 40 is a good stopping point towards end game, and then 40 endurance as well. Typically, a good build would be like 40 vigor, 40 endurance, 27 strength, 40 dex. And you'll probably be close to done with the game, or probably be close to done. I don't know how big the game is. Maybe you won't be close, but that's probably a good stopping point. If you've got anything else, you can obviously keep going, but that's typically where you would want to end your stats for your first build. And, like I said, this is just for a first playthrough. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is the best for you. If you want to go into it trying a spellcaster first off, that's great. Absolutely go for it. It's just typically on your first playthrough, it's pretty hard to play a spellcaster, despite what the whole, there's a very common sentiment in the Souls games that playing a spellcaster is easy. Playing a spellcaster is easy if you know where to get everything. On your first playthrough, you're not going to know where all the spells are. You're probably not going to find even half the spells in the game. So you're going to be pretty gimped by just simply not knowing where stuff is. Now, if you're planning to use a guide to find every spell that you want to find, it'll be a bit easier, but it's a lot more confusing doing a spellcaster for your first playthrough because you're not going to have access to like everything that you want to use because you just simply don't know where it is. You have to go through the game once to find stuff, and then you'll like, as you're on your, dex build or whatever, you'll find, oh, this spell looks cool. And then, the next time you play the game, now you'll know to get that, and then you'll be able to actually, specialize in casting and stuff like that. Also, don't feel ashamed if you are doing a spellcasting build. That whole stigma that it's the easy mode for Dark Souls, I feel like that stopped being true a little while ago. It was certainly true for like, Demon Souls and Dark Souls and stuff like that, especially with Dark Bead and Firestorm and Demon Souls. You could cheese the entire game with it, basically. But the Souls games have gotten progressively faster and faster and faster to the point where if you're able to sit there, channel a fireball, throw the fireball, it's a slow-moving projectile, have it hit the opponent that's going like this all the time, even if it's a boss and an NPC, not a player, I think you deserve the bigger hit of damage. The games have gotten so fast-paced now that it is actually pretty hard to land spells on bosses that are going to be constantly in your face swinging at you. So don't feel ashamed of using spells if you think that's going to be your first playthrough. Just go with what looks cool. Again, your starting class really doesn't matter too much other than your starting gear and whether or not you're going to be going in PvP. Because if you want a PvP, min-maxing is pretty important. But if you're just going to be having a fun playthrough, pick whatever looks cool. But that's it, guys. That's a very quick guide to getting into Elden Ring, starting your class, starting a new, starting what all of your stats should be. And I hope that was useful for those of you who are having your first Souls game experience. And I look forward to seeing everyone there.